Hello. So I'm increasingly seeing every now and then more often about challenges between neurotypical and neurodivergent people. So, healthy natural breathing bridges the gap between these two. Um, or let's just say the difference largely is from our inability to deal with the extremes of the matter, so to speak. Neurotypicals may be more cookied with their nerves or their body composition from um, striated muscles or muscles that have striated, and nerves are more responsive in some way to chemicals, biochemical responses from voluntary muscle action, or so to speak, if this, then that. It's not just ways of thinking, but also actions um, from things working from these perspectives. Sort of. Divergent people may be more okay. Let's just say it's also a difference between objective ways of seeing things and subjective ways of seeing things. And neurodivergent may also be people who are seeing life from not so much of a striated muscle. If something is not working, then get to action and then do things, and then things go out of. Maybe they are not so much voluntary muscles oriented. Maybe, maybe a little more smooth muscle oriented people, a little more introspective. Um, One way to kind of broadly kind of look at it. Another way to look at it is between subjective and objective. So there may be um, particle, or rather, let's say, um, fixed ways of thinking, or um, intellectually, or maybe more um, belief systems wise. Okay, which is also a very concrete way of saying things, which means which is not in some way appreciating between the formed and the unformed. Another way of seeing it is there is the positive side of it, and then there's a negative side of things, the known and the unknown sides. But um, we may be functioning sort of from there are known aspects, but how you work with the known aspects um, and dealing with challenges from the unknown. Okay. Okay. When we breathe, there is an inhalation and an exhalation. Our muscles contract and relax. Both these processes produce effects in our body. There are changes in our, if we regard the muscles to be like a sort of an endocrine gland, where when we contract our muscles and when we relax them, there are changes happening not just in our um, the muscles themselves, because they are made up of fibers, but also in the nerves responding to the muscles. Nerves, um, if you regard that our muscles breathe, nerves also breathe. In an alive body, when the muscles and nerves breathe, um, I again refer to Sri B.K.S. Iyengar, where he says um, senses respond to breath, yeah, are related with breath. When we are breathing and aware, then our senses respond differently versus when we are breathing or not breathing as regularly and our awareness is not as active as it needs to be, then our senses are not responding as well. There's not an exact quote, but that the breath and senses are related. Similarly, he says, if there's a breath of the nerves, if there's a rhythmic vibration of the nerves, then that rhythmic vibration of the nerves is the king of the breaths. Yeah. But if we think only in terms of rhythmic vibration, where Mr. Nikola Tesla also speaks about, if you want to think, know the secrets of the universe, think in terms of frequency, energy, vibration, we would miss out on something that underlies frequency, energy, vibration, or the other side of it. We do know about particle and antiparticle. So in terms of Hatha Yoga, when we talk in terms of particle, antiparticle, that would also be in terms, that would be in some way the known and the unknown, or the positive and the negative, or the visible, or let's just say Sandhya Chaya, or that which is the light side and the dark side, as Hatha is another way to interpret it. And dealing with the dark side may not have been as much studied, or the shadow self, they say. But that's another aspect of the matter. But working with the positive side of life, things work. We kind of have ways to work with what we know about. What we don't know about, we are kind of searching in the dark. Yeah. So if you go by the Johari window, there are things we know and there are things we don't know. And using our muscles, using the body we have, using methods for coping with what we know and what we don't know is also how we deal with different challenges in life. While such is the case, we are breathing. When we are moving, an alive person, a live body, we move our muscles in one way or the other, which means expansion and contraction is happening. And when we are breathing, there's inhalation, exhalation happening. And both these processes are working with the known and the unknown, but it's in the how of it. In pranayama practices, we could be working with repetitive practices, repetitive ways of breathing, or working with our body in repeated exercises, sets of exercises that go in repeated patterns. That is not how we live our everyday life. We work with different, say we have to write something. We are not writing the same thing over and over and over. That's not how we live our everyday life. Similarly, when we are dealing with challenges, a problem, we're not working on the same aspect of the problem over and over and over, expecting the problem to solve. What we do is we do different aspects of the activity, and over time, the problem solves. And we are not doing things only to solve problems, but because we'd like to move forward. Yeah, similarly, yoga has a reason for being in existence. And the different exercises, I wouldn't just say asanas or pranayama, dhyana, or any of the aspects of the Ashtanga Yoga. The 8 limbs, which is popularly related with the Ashtanga Yoga. But to see yoga as a means to move forward, to move from where we have been to where we would like to go. Yeah? Which is at least a state of well-being. Yeah. And we have our 6 senses. Okay. 5 senses is what we popular know of seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, feeling. Okay? Or let's say even touch. Seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, touching, as in the sense of touch. But we may not be relating our sense of our ability for our skin to feel as touch, but there's also touch. We can feel a touch. We can also feel the touch of the sunlight on our skin, yeah, or the touch of the wind breeze on our skin, and then that evokes a certain sensation within our nerves. So, for a beginning sense of this idea, we could approach touch and feeling as related. Okay, so we can differentiate that from sensation. Sensation would be seeing is also a sense, and the sensation from the sense organ of seeing, from the sense organ of hearing, the sensation of hearing. Yeah. So we are differentiating feeling and sensing in that sense. Sense, how we make sense of things. What is not spoken about as much easily is about the sense of knowing. How we make sense of things is also how we take a bit of information and collate it in a particular way that makes sense for our cognitive processes to then make sense and be able to recognition, recognize when we encounter that same sense, that same bit of information another time. So knowing may not be identified as a sense, but we do have thoughts. Yeah. And thoughts are a way by which to recognize, say, um, Helen Keller and her teacher. Yeah. Helen Keller was able to say, for example, there's this popular story about how she recognized recognized water when her teacher introduced the word water while she felt water. Yeah. So there is a recognition of water from the word water by which she could then recognize water because there was a name that she could associate the feeling with. Yeah. So feeling as a sense, knowing as a sense, as in words, you could say, okay, you could say thoughting, but knowing as in a recognition. So you could recognize or not, you could feel, but to recognize, you need to have a sense of knowing. And which is why our knowledge level keeps getting up from a Montessori to first standard, first grade to different levels of education, for example, is when we upgrade our knowledge, our sense of knowing. And when there is another set of information coming, we recognize that this bit of information is related with science, not language, or not with math. So we recognize where to put that information based on the past experience with that bit of information. So in that sense, knowing as a sense, as one of the sense organs or the sense part of the sensory system. So we have 6 senses. Now, it may take a little while for us to differentiate between seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, feeling, touching. We have been interacting with the world in terms of these 5 senses, but we also have been interacting with people based on knowledge. I could say in Kannada, and you may not recognize what I'm saying. I could be saying love in Kannada, but you may not recognize. Yeah. Because in your knowledge base, there is no word in Kannada by which you can recognize what I'm saying. If I repeatedly say the same word, in Kannada, same word, then over time, you're likely to recognize, I've heard this word before. You may or may not know what the meaning of it is, but you've heard the word before. And then when you look it up, for example, or when somebody then associates a meaning with that word, then in your memory bank, you have this word by which you recognize that you have known this. For example, also, say you eat a dish, you eat something which you've never tasted before. In your taste sense, in your taste memory bank, you have now a new taste, which when you encounter another time, you'd be able to remember, yeah, I've tasted this sometime before. Yeah. And so in your taste bank, in your taste sensory bank, you have a new taste. Okay. The word recognition, taste recognition are two different things. Smell recognition, similarly, a new perfume. You'll be able to recognize as, oh, the smell of sugar. Oh, the smell of smoke, exhaust smoke from vehicles, smoke from a candle, or smoke from a electrical fuse. That is, if you have smelled that smell before. Yeah. Similarly, seeing a person for the first time versus repeatedly seeing a person. Yeah. Um, in your seeing memory bank, you have a visual recognition from having seen the person before. Yeah. Versus seeing a stranger for the first time. And then you need to form a memory bank, a memory database. Over time, when you see a person, that's when you recognize, you form a filing system, yeah, a certain new memory bank about from having seen a person. So 6 senses. New experiences, when you've not had before. Now, when I say experience, there could be any of these senses. It could be the experience of a taste, or the experience of a smell, or the experience of a word, or how you then have, what does that do in your body from a word, from seeing something. Yeah. So there is an experience which need not be related with your bodily sensation, but there's an experience from hearing something new, a word, and then over time is an experience which, if you're just hearing a word for the first time, it may not do anything. It may not even make a ripple in your experience or in your um, awareness of the word. Yeah. But over time, there's a story that forms, maybe, when you're hearing to this, when you're hearing the same word over and over. And that's when your database, your memory base, has that word and then associates it with maybe a sensation or something that you see or something that you smell or a memory that you have, by then to recall that word as having been heard before. So if you're hearing a word for the first time, it may not even be an experience because it's just there in your, it's called as a working memory. You've heard something, so it could be in your working memory, or it's just, if there is, for the first time you're hearing, it's just makes no impression. Yeah. Makes no difference to you. So I hope this gives you a little pause for thought in terms of the 6 senses. Now, why am I saying this is neurotypicals and neurodivergent people may be processing the information from the 6 senses differently. And that difference would be coming from how we metabolize the information. Food goes into our body. When there is sufficient metabolism of the food, we don't have diseases. Yeah. When there is insufficient metabolism, food is either stuck in different parts of the body, maybe as constipation or in different metabolic concerns. And consequently, we have we are nutrition sufficient or deficient, which then gives rise to diseases. Yeah. Similarly, information when it comes when we listen or when we see, hear, smell, taste, feel, know. Now I would have said this fast, so your ears may or may not have picked it up, but you probably have an experience, a nervous response to when I'm speaking too fast and then you can't capture it. There's something that happens in the nerves. Versus when I'm speaking slowly and you can grasp the words that I'm saying and your bodily processes, your nervous system, for example, brain, which is largely nervous system, captures the word, goes through the memory database, sound memory database, and then recognizes the word, and then associates the words that I'm speaking with your past space experience. So comparison, or this word, this context, this meaning, this circumstance, and then now understanding is there. Versus I'm speaking a lot of words, you're hearing sounds, but you're not recognizing the words because your nerves are not having the time to capture the word, compare data, and then put this word into the new context. If it's a new word, if it brings something new to your experience. Yeah. So neurotypical people, neurodivergent people process words, for example, the different experiences. Why do I say neurotypical, neurodivergent is our brain processes information from our six senses: seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, feeling, knowing. Our body has a system for capturing words, and that's not necessarily just the hearing, or let's just say capturing knowledge, knowing. Body has a sensory system for it. Yeah. And our nerves, our brain processes all of this information. Yeah. And so the neurotypicals and neurodivergent people process information from our six senses differently. And that is affected also by our inhalation and exhalation, how we inhale, exhale, repeated obsessive compulsive ways of breathing could be affecting it. Yeah, could be even causing the difference. Similarly, expansion, contraction of our muscles. Some of us even repetitively do sets of exercises, versus other people may not be going to the gym as well, or may not be going to the gym at all, or may not be doing exercises in repeated sets. And so how they process information, how their brain processes information, because of the biochemical processes, the chemistry of their brain, of their nervous system, would be different. Okay, so I'll pause on this thought. I know there's a lot of information that I've covered here, but do get in touch with me if you are interested in knowing more on how I think this, or rather what I think about this further, so you have a better understanding of this matter in a way that would make sense. We could begin a dialogue, and then we will get clearer on what's possible from thinking about life, about health in these terms. Yeah. Thank you so much for your attention. Thank you so much for your interest. Good day.